Well, Robb Sagendorph was a complex man. Physically, you know, he was about 6'4" and very slender. He had a very gnarled, lined face. He looked a little like Abraham Lincoln. He was a very private man in some respects. He always said, "Keep your worries and your indigestion to yourself." That's the old way, you know. He loved politics, local politics. He was a selectman. He was a town moderator. All his life he was involved with town affairs. And he loved the garden, and he had animals. In early years he had animals. On the other hand, there was a sophistication about him as well. For instance, he was Harvard, a graduate, class of 22. He was the editor of the Lampoon, and he worked for his father, my grandfather, who ran Penn Metal Company in Boston. And so after that experience of working for his father and now coming out, he came up here to Dublin, which was about 1,500 people at that time, and they moved up on the hill overlooking Mount Monadnock and overlooking the lake, Dublin Lake, and that's where he began Yankee. And that first issue, of course, as we all know, was September of 1935. And people ask, well, why did he begin it? Well, there's a lot of different reasons, probably. One reason is that he submitted a lot of stories to different magazines and nobody published any of them. And he thought, well, I'll start a magazine myself and I'll publish my own stuff. I think he really had a feeling for New England, however. I think he loved New England. He felt New England needed a magazine. Yankee's destiny, of course, nowadays we call it mission. You have a mission statement, but in those days it was destiny. Yankee's destiny was the expression, is the expression, he said, and perhaps indirectly the preservation of our New England culture. And his view was that Yankee every month, and it was monthly at that point, should try to capture that culture. He had a wonderful feeling for readers, for New England in itself. I loved his the card he sent out when people's subscription expired. It said, you know, his whole attitude was, well, if you haven't liked what we've done, if you haven't liked the magazine, I guess we're just going to have to sulk and try harder. And to take your name off our subscription list would be like taking an old friend up to the cemetery on the hill. Well, you know, everybody renewed. I mean, they sent handkerchiefs so that we could cry into them, you know. And he was a bit of a ham, I think, a little bit. I've seen him give speeches to various places around New England. He'd had a wind-up moth. So he'd open up this old-looking book and the wind-up moth would fly out, you know, that type of thing. And he was very active in getting good writers. He had Robert Frost wrote for him, you know, and I could go through a list of quite prominent people. But he was a skinflint when it came to paying. I remember a guy coming in here, Larry Willard, who did a lot of stories for us. He was a photographer and a writer, which was wonderful. And he came in and he did a story up in Franconia, and he said, oh, it's 94 miles, I need expenses, or whatever it was, 5 cents a mile back then or something. Robb said, oh, really? 94, huh? He hauled out his little wheel that he'd sent away for and went along the road on a map, you know, all the curves and everything, got to the end of it and read a little thing there that said 89. He said, it's only 89 miles to Franconia. Come on. I mean, he was a skinflint. When he had cancer, he didn't have medical treatment, and because he was a Christian Scientist, as was his wife Beatrix. And we all gathered at his house up for one morning over coffee and to convince him otherwise. And he said, well, I really appreciate what you're trying to do, but I don't want to have over medical treatment now. Just allow me to get down with my flags flying. What could you say? What could you do? And he did die about 6 months later. My mother was his sister, and she called him a funny duck. He called her harebrained. They never really saw eye to eye, but I grew to love the man.